Hey guys, my name is Onin. I hold at least one world record in Risk of Rain, and this is a guide to help people get into speedrunning it. There's a lot to cover. I'll try and put it in bunches, try and be as concise and clear as possible. So the first thing is technical aspects. First off, we do not run on the Steam version. We run on a version 1.2.2. which you can find on the speedrun.com page in the resources tab. Just a download, works separately. You might want to get one of the save files that's up there as well, so you can have all your items unlocked, or you can just doctor the save files yourself. You can find out how to do that on the Risk of Rain wiki. It's pretty simple. Requires a little bit of editing. And we use that one because it has a much faster fight against the final boss than on the release version. Basically, one of his abilities is bugged. It usually gives him a shield that makes him take barely any damage for a little while. That doesn't work in version 1.2.2, and so we just run on that version. A little bit less stable than the Steam version, but we'll just have to take that with us. So if you got the 1.2.2 version, then start the game up. You're gonna have all your items unlocked. When we get started, you do not start a single-player game. You start an online co-op game. You just host a game. And the reason for that is twofold. Firstly, enemies are a little bit easier in the online co-op mode. You just have a little bit less health because of something with the difficulty scaling for multiple players. Doesn't really work that well when you're playing by yourself. But secondly, the menus do not pause while you are in a multiplayer game. And that's going to be very helpful for some glitch setups later. But I'll talk about that when it comes there. Play with the bandit, because the bandit is the fastest. You can go for either Rainstorm or Monsoon difficulty. I usually recommend people to start on Monsoon, because it actually gives you a lot more time to just check out the map, get all your item drops and such. Even though it's supposed to be the higher difficulty, it's, for a speedrun, actually the easier difficulty. Then as far as the artifacts go, you're going to start with glass, because you need to do a lot of damage, and the health penalty is easy to just, not get hit. Play with command, so that you can pick your own items, no longer have to rely on have to rely less on RNG. And you get spirit, because occasionally you can take damage from enemies and go a little bit faster, which is always useful, saves you a couple of seconds in most runs. If you're playing on Monsoon, there is also the option to go for Origin, so that at 10 minutes, imps start invading your world, and you get at least one additional item drop from that. But if you're going for super good times, it usually actually wastes time rather than saving it, but when you get started, it can be an extra help. So, here we are in the first level. As you can see, it's already cleared out, because I have some important glitches to talk about. First thing, which is the most important in the entire run, you're gonna have to find one of these orange boxes. Preferably as fast as possible. When you start out, you might go for later ones, but you want these as early as possible on the first map to go really, really fast. You're gonna pick the glowing amethyst, the gigantic amethyst. And then you smokescreen, use it, and smokescreen again. As you might be able to see, I'm starting to move a little bit faster. This is because whenever you use a smokescreen while in a smokescreen, it doesn't technically break. And so you have two stacks of smokescreen running at the same time, but only one of them fades away from you. Which means that the movement speed bonus that smokescreen gives, one of those permanently applies to you. As you can see, I'm definitely starting to go a lot faster by now. And this can stack infinitely. You can go ridiculously high speeds with this. How fast you want to go kind of depends on how much you can control it. But basically, as fast as possible when you're still comfortable with your movements is the best. Of course, when there are actually mobs around, the final ability of the bandit, Lights Out, can reset your cooldowns, which means that you don't have to wait for your smokescreen to get off cooldown, so that can get you your stacks a little bit faster. But yeah, this is how we go fast. It's something that's very much worth mentioning, that you know, Risk of Rain, it has a lot of timers. You have to wait for the cooldown of the teleporter to charge, where you get all the mobs off you, so there isn't really that much time to save in a full speedrun. The main things that waste time are finding the teleporter, and then clearing so that you can activate the teleporter and get out of the level. So, this glitch, we call the bandit sprint, or the amethyst glitch, or whatever. This really helps you with finding portals really fast. Once you have it fully stacked, you can find teleporters in seconds and save a bunch of time that way. And then there is the exiting. Now, whenever you exit a level by using the teleporter, all of this money that you have in the top right, top left corner becomes experience and flies all the way over towards your character, and only once all of the experience has been gathered do you actually exit the level. Now this can also take a little bit of time, but there is a simple way to speed things up. As you can see right now, I see a whole bunch of the level because we are playing on 1x zoom. This is obviously helpful because you can see the portal from very far away, and you can also see where all kinds of enemies spawn, so for the most time you obviously want to run on this. However, if you go to zoom scale 3, the distance between my money in the top left corner and my character is significantly slower. So at the end of every level, you're going to want to zoom in, use the teleporter, grab the experience, and immediately zoom back out so that you can go and find the next teleporter. That is how we save a whole bunch of time in just the dead time between all of these teleport timers. And that's the primary glitches that you're going to be using throughout most of the stages. So it's killing things, staying alive, stacking up your bandit sprints, gathering a whole bunch of items, and then using the zoom strats to waste as little time transferring to the next level as possible. Now here we are at the last stage. And of course, there are ways to save time here as well, because this one doesn't really rely on any timers. And you might think, well, aren't you supposed to open these doors? Are those on timers? Well, that's where item drops come in, because with the right items we can simply do this. And that skips the first doors. For that you need 5 different jump items. So there's 2 different you can pick from. You have the Boo Feather that gives you another jump, and you have the Rusty Jetpack that increases your jump height. You can go with 5 feathers, 4 feathers and 1 jetpack, or 3 feathers and 2 jetpacks. I prefer 3 and 2 because it's a little bit faster movement and also a little bit less difficult to mess up. Worth mentioning that if you happen to spawn in the top row right here, then that one's fully blocked off. There's no way to jump over the rest of the level when you get that spawn, and you just basically lose 30 seconds, and if you're going for really good times, it loses you to run. So that's just something you gotta deal with. It really sucks. But that's what you get for speedrunning this. Either way, that's not even the end of this, because I've already cheated and opened these up, but there's 2 more doors here, both of which have a 30-second timer, and we're gonna skip to both of those as well. Doing that, however, is a little bit more intricate. I'm gonna get this jelly out of the way while I try it. So what you're gonna do, you have your bandit sprints, you have your extra jumps. What we're gonna do is we're gonna jump off the level. And if you stay off the level for a couple of seconds, then the game will try to correct you by teleporting your character down to the nearest spawn point. Which, on this level, can be more than a single one, which makes it a little bit more tricky. But either way, what we're doing while we are being teleported is holding up and down, so that we try to grab onto this ladder that is in Providence's room. And the tricky thing about this is that you kind of have to be on the right height, about over here, in order to actually get the correct distance from the teleport to hit the ladder. So you have to hold up in order to catch the ladder, and then the only reason you're holding down is that you immediately teleport to the bottom of the level. And to practice this, just do exactly what I did. Just open up these two doors so that you can do this. Got the ladder. You got it. Go back out. Try again. If you didn't get it, you'll spawn below and have to go through all of that to try again. But this takes a little bit of practice. Just to get approximately the right height. About up against this ladder usually works well. And something you really got to keep in mind is do not hold right. We want to be just at the very edge. Because the further right you go, the worse the angle for the teleport is to actually grab the ladder. If you get good enough at it, this should not be a problem. Takes a bit of practice, and after that you get it almost all of the time. Shouldn't really be that big of a deal. Now, as I mentioned, you need 5 very specific items in order to do this. So let's talk about items in general for a moment. The ones that we pick up in the Rainstorm difficulty run are in order: a smart shopper, which just gives you extra gold from every enemy that you kill. It's not necessary, but it gives you so much money that you can just open more boxes, so it's pretty much always worth it. Second, you get fireworks. Normally you should only need 1 of them, but just for safety you can get 2 of them. And for most of the game they're used for map control by killing enemies that have spawned, but they also have a very important use in the killing of Providence, which I'll go over later. If you find any red chests, use them on turbines. In this little run here I only got a single one. You'd like to have 2 of them, and after you get 2 of them it doesn't really matter what else you take. You can get behemoths to deal 20% bonus damage on every shot. You can get the pew-pew lasers, as I call them. I forgot what the actual name of the item is. But it deals extra 60% damage with an additional projectile. It doesn't always hit, but if it hits, it does more. This is a junk item, ignore that. 3 or 4 feathers, 1 or 2 jump jets. Then all of the rest of the whites, you're gonna to get syringes. Now, important to note about syringes is that the numbers about how much they stack are all over the place, but just ignore them, honestly. Because a thing about the bandit is, if you just hold your fire button, you're actually not firing at as fast as you can be. If you mash harder than your attack rate, it's a bit hard to notice because my base attack rate is pretty fast already. But if you mash harder than your actual attack rate, you can actually attack faster. So, at the speed that I can mash, about 6 syringes is about the fastest attack speed I get. Like, my mashing speed with 6 syringes is higher than having, say, 9 syringes and just holding the button. So that would be the most effective for me. So as soon as I have those 6, I get mostly just crowbars, because they are guaranteed damage. They always help. And guaranteed damage is just useful in making sure that you always go faster. As for the greens, after your sharpshooter, your 5 jumpers, you just get only missiles. It's the strongest item for damage in the game, and even though it's a random chance, the chance they proc actually stacks, so by the time you have 10 of these, you have a 100% chance to proc it. So having about 8 just almost always deals a ton of damage during the boss fight. So, smart shopper, 1 or 2 fireworks, 2 turbines, if you get that lucky, 5 jumpers, 6 syringes, as many rockets as you can find, as many crowbars as you can find still. Then, of course, also very important, you get your glowing amethyst as fast as possible. And then, once your bandit sprint is stacked up about as fast as you can handle it, then you want to use the very next orange chest you find to get an explorer's key. And that's going to also be very important for the Providence strategy. So that's what I'm going to go into next. But before that, just note the strats for Monsoon difficulty. You can use the exact same as these, there's no problem with that, but there is a faster strat which I will go into afterwards, which is just purely also about how you kill Providence. So let's get over to that. Okay, so this is a recording of my PB. See, items are all in place. 2 rockets, smart chopper, 2 turbines, 5 syringes, single crowbar, had a little bit less of those drops, 5 jumpers, 5 rockets. And here we go and do the OOB. Pop the thing. And very important to note right here, you might think I'm just firing for absolutely no reason, but that's actually just to charge up the turbine. I want it to be as highly charged as possible just before Providence spawns, so that I can use the explosion that it gives to deal a ton of damage to him. The second, smaller little strat here is that I get a very specific position just to the right of this little desk or box or what the heck it is, because that's exactly where Providence spawns. And the nice thing about being right inside of Providence's hitbox is that every time your rockets proc, they immediately hit them, instead of having to fly around, then lock on, and then hit him. So that can actually speed up the fight a little bit. It's a bit risky. If you want to try this, you could spend an additional green item on a Guardian Heart that gives you some extra shield, so that if he hits you once, you're not going to die immediately. Because if he hits you once with less than 100 HP, you're going to die immediately. But it shouldn't be an issue. He should be dead fast enough, or you just stand here for the first second or two, and before he gets his first attack off, you run away because you're really fast. But just some spamming of left click and getting the turbine charge, and maybe a couple of lucky rockets should be enough to kill the first phase. In this case, I was a little bit low on items, so it took a little bit longer than I would have liked. Might have seen, but it's still pretty speedy. It's about as fast as this usually goes. So now the second phase spawns. The worms come from all the way from the bottom of the level, slowly move up to you, and at this point you really can't do much to actually hit them. So what I'm doing is spamming my default attack in order to build up my turbine again. And that's the main reason you want 2 of these, because the more turbines you stack, the faster it charges, and having 2 of them usually gets it charged the moment the worms are vulnerable and ready to be blown up. This is about good enough. Gotta wait for them to line up, and as you might know about worms, they have several segments. The turbine hits every single one of the segments that it hits, and basically one-shots them. That's the primary reason why turbines save a ton of time. It murders phase 2 completely. And after that is the setup for phase 3. Now he's floating around up here, just taunting me a little bit for a couple seconds. We wait those seconds out. And then what we do is we jump up to the top left corner of this room, and we use the key. Now the key will open a whole bunch of boxes that are lined up in the room above us, and all of those boxes are going to shoot fireworks, and all of those fireworks are going to go for Providence. And so the reason we get 2 fireworks instead of 1 usually is because sometimes there are less boxes upstairs, and there might even not be enough to kill him completely in this 3rd phase. So just to be sure that that doesn't happen is why you get the second fireworks drop. You gotta time it properly. If you go too early, then the fireworks start floating up into the air, because while Providence is floating in the corner right now, he can't actually be targeted by them. So just before he teleports to the floor and starts his combat is when you use your key and get the fireworks started. And as soon as you use the key, you want to cling onto this ladder up here, which makes Providence use his teleport attack to get up here, just above the ladder. There's no way he can hit you, but we want him to be in that position so that he's as close as possible to the rockets to murder him. We use the key, all these fireworks, and he's dead. And then you click the goddamn button. So that's as easy as it can be. As long as you have all of the items, it should be no problem whatsoever. Now I mentioned a secondary strategy for Monsoon difficulty, so let's have a look at that one. The items we have here is smart chopper, rockets, a couple of junk that you don't need to worry about. 4 feathers, 2 jetpacks because I had too many. But the primary uses of this strategy, the primary things that make this strategy work are mass crowbars, an Aghanim scepter, or crystal scepter or something, the thing that upgrades your ultimate. As many rockets as you can find, as many behemoths as you can find. And something I didn't get in this run, but that you would like to get, is a shattered mirror as your use item. And the reason for all that, well, I'll just let it speak for itself. And he's fucking dead. You want to see that again? He's fucking dead. That's about why that works. You deal so much damage in a single use of your ultimate that Providence simply dies. The downside of the strategy is that it's very reliant on how many items you can get. You want as many reds as possible. The first one has to be used for a scepter, but you want as many behemoths, and then as many crowbars, and preferably also as many rockets as possible, because getting a proc there actually saved this run for me. But if you have good enough items, then you can simply one-shot Providence in all of his phases. There is the slight downside that this makes the worms take a little bit longer. They also take all of the bonus damage from crowbars and behemoths and all of the stacking, so if you have enough items, you can also one-shot those, but it's a little bit less likely. Again, if you have Shattered Mirror, it's going to be totally fine. Shattered Mirror actually lasts exactly long enough, if you use it on just the right time, for every single phase of the boss to die to it. So try to use it as late as possible, but it should add so much damage that it makes this strat a lot easier. And then the third phase. Important to note, he spawns at a slightly different position, actually to the left of this same desk. So phase 1 he spawns to the right of this desk, phase 2 directly down here. This is easier to line up because he's actually just floating here, but that's where he spawns. And you gotta be right on top of him in order to deal the maximum damage with your rocket procs, as I mentioned before. But so, here, phase 3 starts. And he's fucking dead again. But this only works on Monsoon because you need that many items, and also I think just that many level ups. Like level 12 as opposed to the level 9, I think, that you enter the boss phase with on Rainstorm difficulty. I've tried it on Rainstorm, it's never going to work, I'm pretty sure. Which is a shame because this is really cool, but, you know, it's something very much worth mentioning. So lastly, I just want to get you through some of the tactics that I use while running. For instance, I spawned somewhere in the middle of the map, and I immediately went to the left, even though I'm kind of closer to the edge on the right side. And that's simply because usually on the left side is where the better portal spawns are, so if the portal is on the right side, then it would be bad anyway, and if I don't find it on the left, then I'm gonna reset anyway. It wouldn't really matter where I go. Whereas, if it's on the left and you go to the right, then you could be resetting a very valuable portal. And that's kind of logic that I basically use on every single map. In this case we get kind of a mediocre one, but that's okay. I use it on every single map. I always go to the fastest position that I can very likely get a good portal. And if I'm unlucky, then I'm unlucky. I can try a new run. That's how it happens. So you activate the portal, and the first thing you do is try everything you can to get your glowing amethyst, which means killing a whole bunch of shit and opening all of the altars, all of the 205 boxes, and other such things. Take damage boosts to move faster. Get fireworks to help your map control. So solve these guys. There we go. And move through the entire map. Now on Rainstorm difficulty, you have to be very deliberate about where you go because you don't really have enough time, which is why I added running, or starting running, at Monsoon difficulty, because you have plenty of time to go around. Like, going up here to get these last chests is something I would never do on Rainstorm difficulty. And the reason for that is that you can get all of these enemies to spawn behind you, and sometimes they spawn in terrible positions, and you have to waste several seconds, like this one right here, cleaning up after them. That's why you want to get out of here as fast as possible. Reduce the chance of that happening. And something else you can do is try to keep chests behind you so that you can abuse fireworks in order to clear these kinds of mobs out for you. Because you don't want to be stuck back there, you want to get out of there as fast as possible. Couple seconds remaining, you want to use your zoom strats, and then in this case I'm just staying around for examples, but while you're waiting for the timer to tick down, you're going to want to find a location that enemies are going to spawn right inside of you so you can easily kill them. There's something that they can't really show off now because I had some bad luck, but that I know from experience is if you stand up here, things are going to spawn down here, which is kind of shitty. So for most of the time that the thing's running down, you're going to want to stay down here and just stay here and clear out anything that spawns. And then when you have about, say, 5 seconds left, is when you can climb up here and use this altar that you have left in order to spawn some fireworks, which will then home into anything that dares spawn just in time and clear those out. And again, that's a tactic you can use in every single map. At the last seconds of a map, open up a tiny barrel or an altar that you left over or anything so that your fireworks can clear out any spawns that you might have missed or any flyers that are coming up from off screen. It can save you a ton of time because runs have been lost many times by just a single extra mob spawning somewhere that you hadn't expected. Let's see what we get here. This is another example. So here we spawn at the top, which means there are a lot of spawns on the bottom side which it can spawn in. And I think on the right side of the map is a little bit more likely. But at this point, it's an annoying bet to make because the likelihood is actually pretty similar. But we found it. If we'd gone to the left, we would have never been able to find it. Still kind of crap, but that's okay. This is another example of a really annoying place to clean up, but at least now that we have a whole bunch of now that we have a whole bunch of bandit sprint stacks, we can show a little bit off about how I do map control another map. Which is completely ignore those fuckers down there, because I have fireworks and they'll do it for me. Instead, I want to spend all of my time going around the entire map. Here's a nice box. Fireworks are homing in on something to kill it. Bandit sprint, reset, bandit sprint, kill this and just run off. Fireworks do the work for me. Actually, in this case, because they're homing in on the wrong side, for safety, I'm going to clean up that. But for the rest, ignore those, grab items, ignore these, open a box, grab more items, grab more items. Just being able to constantly chain pickups is gonna do so much map control for you that you basically don't even have to stand still and kill things. But it really depends on how you budget your pickups. And so now we have 20 seconds left, and we kind of know that they can spawn either up here or down here. If I'm standing down here, then these guys up here are very far out of reach, so I'm gonna clean up here. If anything spawns down there, I'm going to ignore it until I have about 5 seconds left. And then I'm going to go down Also, zoom strats, which you lost the game, it's okay. Now I go down and hope that anything else that spawns down here. Or nothing at all. And I got a little bit lucky. So that's about some examples about how map control kind of works to hedge your bets, to hopefully not get screwed by RNG with random spawns or with portals that you just didn't manage to see. Now this is all based on experience. You'll learn this as you play more. You don't just start doing this in your first runs, but it's something I think it's helpful to think about, to keep in your mind, to think whenever you lose a whole bunch of time because something spawned behind you, think about how you could have prevented that, if at all. I think that's helpful to take with you. And the last thing I'd just like to say is, you know, have fun. Don't get too bummed out by terrible RNG. If you wonder why your times are slow or why you can never get good portals, the reason is because it takes me hours of resets to get a really good level going, really good RNG going, and I've spent hundreds of hours playing Risk of Rain in order to get the best times possible. If you really enjoy putting that much time into a game to get a perfect run, then you might enjoy Risk of Rain. If you don't enjoy that, if you'd rather just get a nice run going, then take some of that worse RNG, just accept it and go slightly slower. It's still just fun to zip around with the bandit sprint glitch. It's fun to murder Providence. And it's fun to go about as fast as you can. You don't have to always be the very fastest. I hope that this guide was useful. And I hope this helps people get on their way easier, faster, and, you know, have fun.